Hey, my fellow rockheads. Welcome back to FinanceCaveman. Today we're talking about one of the strangest economic stories in human history. Humans crossed oceans, froze on rivers, built giant trading companies, started wars, and trapped millions of animals. Not for food, not for survival, not even for gold, for hats. Very fashionable humans. A plain caveman stands proudly in a simple animal skin. Another caveman walks by wearing a tall, shiny beaver hat. Suddenly, everyone turns and stares at the second caveman. The first caveman looks down at his own boring skin, then at the beavers hiding behind a rock. The beavers look extremely nervous. It turns out one fashion trend in Europe completely rewrote the economy of North America. Beaver fur became so valuable that people treated it almost like money. Entire businesses were built around it. Cities grew because of it. Empires competed for it. And when fashion changed, an industry that had seemed almost permanent was forced to change with it. Today, we're investigating how one small animal created one of history's biggest commodity booms, what it teaches us about supply and demand, and why humans have always been willing to pay ridiculous prices just to look slightly more impressive. The world's most valuable hat. Before we can understand the fur boom, we need to answer one simple question. Why beavers? Europe already had plenty of animals. Foxes, wolves, sheep, rabbits. So why travel across an ocean for a beaver? Because beaver fur was special. Its soft underfur could be turned into felt, not the cheap craft felt we know today. This was strong, warm, water-resistant, perfect for making fashionable hats. And in Europe, hats weren't just about staying warm, they were status symbols. A fancy hat quietly announced, "I have money." Humans have always loved wearing their bank account. A caveman looks at another caveman's beaver hat. Does it hunt better? No. Does it keep you warmer? A little. Then why is everyone staring at it? Because it's expensive. The caveman nods slowly. Ah, humans. Soon, demand exploded. Kings wanted beaver hats. Merchants wanted beaver hats. Lawyers wanted beaver hats. Even ordinary people dreamed of owning one. As more people wanted them, prices kept climbing. And whenever prices climb, something very predictable happens. Someone, somewhere decides we should sell more of these. That's how a fashion trend became an economic opportunity. And that simple idea would build one of the largest trading businesses in history, when fashion built an empire. Once Europe decided it wanted beaver hats, the next question became, where do we find more beavers? The answer was simple: North America. At the time, North America had enormous beaver populations living in rivers, lakes, and forests stretching for thousands of miles. To European merchants, this wasn't just wilderness, it was inventory. Soon, French traders crossed the Atlantic. British traders followed. Trading posts began appearing along rivers because rivers were the highways of the time. One company became especially famous, the Hudson's Bay Company. Founded in 1670 with a royal charter from the King of England, this was not a small trading post. It was a private empire. At its peak, the Hudson's Bay Company controlled a territory larger than most modern countries. It ran its own forts, employed thousands of people, negotiated with indigenous nations, and operated like a government in the wilderness. For generations, beaver pelts sat near the heart of the Hudson's Bay Company's fur trading business. That is how powerful one fashion trend became. A single company could claim trading rights across an enormous portion of North America because European demand for fur had become extraordinarily valuable. A merchant points at a map. "There are thousands of beavers over there." Another merchant smiles. "I suddenly enjoy long boat trips." The fur trade wasn't simply Europeans trapping animals. Indigenous nations were essential partners in the trade. Many communities already possessed deep knowledge of the land, rivers, seasons, and wildlife. They traded pelts for goods such as metal tools, firearms, blankets, cooking equipment, and other European products. These weren't simple transactions between Europeans and isolated trappers. Indigenous nations were central to the trade. Indigenous people acted as hunters, suppliers, guides, diplomatic partners, and commercial powers in their own right. The relationships varied enormously across regions and changed over time. Trade created opportunities, but it also brought dependency, competition, conflict, and profound disruption. Money flowed. Trade expanded. New settlements appeared. Businesses grew. The fascinating part is that none of this happened because people discovered gold. It happened because people wanted fashionable hats. FinanceCaveman looks across an enormous forest. Millions of beavers. He looks at Europe. Millions of people buying hats. He scratches his beard. I think I know where this story is going. And that's one of the oldest lessons in economics. When demand becomes strong enough, humans will cross oceans, build companies, and reshape entire economies just to satisfy it. Next. When prices go high, humans go crazy. By now, beaver-fur was making people rich, and whenever something becomes valuable, humans become extremely motivated. The problem with commodity booms is that success creates its own problems. As heavily trapped areas produced fewer pelts, costs and risks increased. There was another cost hiding inside the boom. Beavers weren't widgets in a factory. Relentless trapping could empty heavily exploited areas. And because beaver dams reshape streams, wetlands, and entire habitats, removing beavers wasn't simply removing a commodity. Humans were changing landscapes while chasing it. FinanceCaveman looks at an empty river. Inventory appears to have stopped manufacturing itself. As trapping increased, beavers became much harder to find near the original trading posts. Hunters had to travel farther. Costs went up. Risks increased. And while supply was becoming more difficult, something unexpected was happening back in Europe. Fashion was quietly changing. The market that made everyone rich was about to learn a lesson every investor eventually faces. Demand can disappear much faster than it appeared. And when it does, yesterday's fortune can become tomorrow's problem. Next, the day the hats went out of style. Every great commodity boom eventually meets a dangerous enemy. Not war, not weather, not even competition. Fashion. For decades, the beaver hat was a symbol of wealth and status. But humans are strange creatures. Give fashion enough time, and yesterday's status symbol eventually becomes today's very last year. A wealthy merchant proudly walks into a room wearing his newest beaver hat. His friend glances at it and says, "Very last year." The merchant's smile freezes. He suddenly feels financially uncomfortable. During the 19th century, silk hats and changing fashions increasingly challenged the beaver-felt hat. They were lighter, stylish, and, most importantly, new. Demand for beaver-felt didn't disappear overnight. But the product that had helped power an enormous trading system was losing its privileged place in European fashion. Merchants who had spent years building their business around beaver fur started receiving fewer orders. Prices began to fall. Trading posts that once thrived became less profitable. Some closed. Entire local economies that depended on the fur trade had to adapt or shrink. The fascinating part is that the beaver itself did not change. The quality of the fur did not change. Only human preference changed. That's another FinanceCaveman rule. Sometimes your business is not controlled by your product. It is controlled by what customers decide to love next. FinanceCaveman holds up a beautiful beaver hat. Yesterday, this made you rich. He holds up a silk hat. Today, this makes you rich. Humans change their minds faster than mammoths change direction. That's why successful investors don't just watch what they own, they watch what customers want. Because markets don't reward yesterday's trend forever. Eventually, every boom has to answer one difficult question. What happens when nobody wants your product anymore? Finally, the mammoth economics lesson. So what did the beaver fur boom actually teach us? The beaver boom followed a pattern markets still repeat today. Demand pushed prices higher. High prices attracted more suppliers. Success encouraged people to believe the boom would continue. Then tastes changed. A substitute appeared, and suddenly, yesterday's valuable commodity wasn't quite so valuable anymore. FinanceCaveman finds a beautiful beaver pelt, worth a fortune. 20 years later, he finds another one, worth considerably less. The beaver looks exactly the same. The market does not. That's why smart investors don't fall in love with products. They study demand, because demand creates fortunes, and disappearing demand destroys them. The same lesson applies today. Oil, lithium, coffee, gold. Even fashionable technologies can experience versions of the same cycle. Every market eventually asks the same question: will people still want this tomorrow? FinanceCaveman has one final mammoth rule. Demand creates the boom. High prices attract the crowd, and changing demand decides how long the party lasts. Humans crossed oceans, built enormous trading networks, traveled frozen rivers, pushed deeper into forests, and helped reshape the economy of North America because fashionable people in Europe wanted better hats. FinanceCaveman looks down at his beaver hat. He adjusts it carefully. To be fair, it is a very nice hat. Still not crossing an ocean for it. Sometimes the world's biggest economic stories begin with something ridiculously small. A hat, a fashion, a change in taste. And suddenly, an entire industry has to change with it. That's mammoth economics. I'll see you in the next trade. Peace.